Hi everyone, my name is Aikaterini Kanta and I'm a PhD student with University College Dublin and the European Commission's Joint Research Centre. And I'm here today to present PCWQ, a framework for evaluating password cracking wordlist quality. The contribution of this work can be summarized as a novel modular framework that is used to measure the quality of input word lists, an analysis of the interconnecting metrics that we're using for the evaluation, and a showcase of how the framework works by using a variety of input word lists. So all about authentication. The average number of passwords users need to remember is shown to be 27 in one study, although it would be 191 in another. And this is because we use them for everything. We use them for social media, for logging into our computers. They can be numerical, alphanumerical, or patterns. And lately, especially for critical websites, they are multi-factor authentication. So it's 2 out of something you know, something you have, something you are, or somewhere you are. Still, the single password is the preferred method of authentication. And sometimes because it's the weakest point of entry, it's also what people use to gain entry to a system. And this is why password cracking techniques have been developed. Traditionally, the most well-known technique is a brute force attack, also known as an exhaustive search, which is a technique that's guaranteed to work if you have infinite time and resources. But in practice, it doesn't work for complex or long passwords. With an NVIDIA 3080, it would take about 2 days to fully explore a space of 8-character passwords. But, and also this is why NIST recommends LATS8, which means at least 8 characters, lowercase, uppercase, digit, and special. People, though, still select passwords that are easy to remember but weak, or they potentially reuse complex passwords by changing them a little bit, or following the same process for constructing them. And this is something that dictionary attacks try to leverage by testing passwords from given word lists and using mangling rules that are rules that try to mimic user tendencies, such as adding a 1 at the end of the password. And more recently, we've seen machine learning and AI techniques being used more and more because they're trying to leverage the big quantity of passwords that have been leaked recently from various data breaches. For example, the password on the screen seems like a very secure password because it's long and it's not easy to remember. But if that password is already part of a data breach, it would be a serious security issue to use it. So word lists, dictionary attacks are still the most popular method of password cracking attack. And because they use dictionary lists, it is important to measure the quality of those dictionary lists. And to do that, we have to look at a few things. We have to look at the cracking method that we are choosing to do the password cracking. We have to look at whether there is any context. For example, if the target is a specific individual or a group of people, or we're just looking to crack as many passwords as possible without having a specific target. We have to look at things like the language of the target, the type of service, because people tend to use more difficult passwords if it's, for example, for a banking website than it would be for a generic forum. Therefore, we have to take a lot of things into account, and it's not easy to evaluate the quality of the word list. This is why we are proposing to look at a compound metric that would take a few things into account. First of all, the final percentage of passwords cracked, which would be the most straightforward metric in password cracking, where we're looking only at the number of passwords that have been cracked from a target list. This is important if we care about cracking as many passwords as possible instead of a single target or a small number of targets. Next, we're looking at the number of guesses until target. For example, if we have two word lists and one recovers more passwords than the other, if the second one needs fewer password candidates to generate the number of guesses needed until target, then it would be in some cases preferential. For example, if we're looking, if we have hardware constraints or the underlying function has a high complexity. Next is progress over time, where we look at the pace in which the passwords are recovered. If, for example, at some point the newer password candidates do not crack more passwords, this could be a criterion for us to stop the process. The size of the word list is also significant because if we have two word lists that perform the same and one of them is significantly smaller than the other, then it means it needs less information to achieve the same results, and does so in less amount of time. And finally, we can, if the word lists are similar in all the previous metrics, we can look at the better performance with stronger passwords. If, for example, we focus on a single target, and it is important to be for the word list to perform better with stronger passwords, which we would assume would be the case. All of this show us that a single metric is not sufficient, and to accurately assess a given word list, you would need to focus on one or more, but always according to the scenario of the attack. And what we have proposed is a framework that can evaluate the performance of different input dictionaries, and then use a feedback process to be able to better optimize the dictionary lists. So the pre-processing step, which is out of the scope of this paper, contains the creation of tailored input lists from existing or custom dictionaries, and also tailored mangling rules. And these two together would create the final dictionary, which would be processed with the various password crackers. And then, according to the evaluation, it will either be used as for password cracking, or it will retrigger the word list creation process, where we might modify the size of the list, the number and the quality of the mangling rules, the level of context, with the end goal of optimizing the generation of the password candidate list. So in order to showcase how the framework works, we have selected a few datasets. We've selected Axe Music, Zip Forum, Minecraft, and Manga Traders, which are data breaches that thematically belong to music, cars, games, and manga, respectively. And for the evaluation, we have selected BoostBot, which is a video game data leak, and MangaFox, which is also related to manga, and RockQ, which is our baseline. For RockQ, we're using the unique passwords version, which is 14 million, but we've also tested it with PCFG with a full version of 32 million, which yielded a little better, but similar results. So as you can see from the figures, RockQ performs better for all password crackers, which is something that is not surprising because the difference in size between RockQ and the other two datasets is significant. RockQ is 32 times larger than MangaFox and about 100 times larger than BoostBot. We see PCFG performs the best for all three. And we also see that for MangaFox and BoostBot, Prince does not perform well at all. And the reason for that is because these datasets are significantly smaller than ROQ, and the principle on which Prince operates is on combining entries of the input dictionary to create new candidates. Therefore, the size of the input dictionary matters in this case. Because if we focus only on the number of cracked passwords, ROQ would be the clear winner. We have to also look at the other metrics. And to do that, we have classified comp4, which is all four of these leaks, and all of them separately on classes of strength. And for that, we've used ZXFBN, which is the strength meter used by Dropbox, where class 0 is the least secure and class 4 is the most secure. We can see that the amount of passwords cracked from each class for the comp4 dataset is better for PCFG for all classes, although for class 0, the results are similar across all crackers. Interestingly, MangaFox and BoostBot were able to find about 1/3 as many passwords in class 4 as ROQ for PCFG, which is a very good result considering the difference in size. Next, because in real-world scenarios, we don't choose one word list over the other, but we stack them for better results. The idea here would be that someone would use ROQ first, and then supplement it with either MangaFox or BoostBot. So we're looking at the passwords that are found by BoostBot and MangaFox that have not been found by ROQ. And as you can see, there are a lot of passwords that were not found by ROQ that were found by the other two. And in fact, they bring about a 14% increase to the total number of recovered passwords. The recovery of class 4 passwords with Omen was even more impressive because about twice as many passwords were found with MangaFox or BoostBot compared to ROQ, which means that those two performed better than ROQ in this case. Then we're doing a breakdown by dataset, and we're focusing on PCFG for class 3 and 4, where we have, instead of comp4, we're looking at its component datasets. And the reason we're doing that is because MangaFox and BoostBot, which are leaks about manga and video games, we see here that they perform better on the data sets that are related to them thematically, manga traders and Minecraft, compared to Axe Music and Zip Forum, which are about music and cars. So there is a link between performance and context in this case. To conclude, word lists have a different impact depending on the context of the target dataset, as we just shown before, and the password cracking method chosen. For example, the size of the input word list mattered a lot for Prince, but didn't perform well at all for MangaFox and BoostBot. And PCWQ is a framework that can be used to develop and assess those word lists, and then tailor them to the specific scenarios. But by taking into account the fact that not one metric can stand alone, and so which one has the better quality. So for our future work, we're going to focus on the step at the beginning, the pre-processing step, that is generate targeted word lists, because the ones we used here were data bridges that we didn't customize at all. We're going to look at how tailoring the word list to a targeted community or a targeted class of strength or using dedicated pre-processing, such as in the case of prints, would bring better results than the ones we got for this paper. We're going to look at options to customize word lists, which would be a constant feedback process where we would create the word list, evaluate it, and then see if we would need to tweak parameters. And finally, we will look at the evaluation of those lists within the PCWQ framework by using the compound metric. Thank you very much.